And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Hey folks, I'm Tom Vasel, and today we're taking a look at a game called Terramara, which is a game in which you are kind of taking your tribe. You're going to collect the resources to build amazing artifacts. It is a worker placement game, and in this game, there's some unique aspects that I haven't seen in a game before. Sometimes where you place a worker, but you may never get that worker back. But that's your decision to make. What am I talking about? I'll show you. I'm not going to go over every rule of this game. I just want to give you enough to get a feel of it. You have a river down here, which you'll be moving your canoe on. You have a road in which you'll be moving caravans. You have a warfare track up there. But most of the board has all these different spots on it that you'll be building randomly at the beginning of the game. And all these places you'll be putting your workers and your chieftain that you'll have. At the beginning of the game, players are going to be drafting from a deck of starting special abilities. They're also going to have some starting resources. You'll be picking from these resources, and you're also going to be picking a person who you're going to start as a child, and at some point over the course of the game, you may have them grow up and become who they are meant to be. So this gives you a special ability, and later on it will give you some way to score points at the end of the game, but you have to decide when to do that because you'll lose the special ability, and instead now you're going for points. As players play each of the 5 rounds in the game, they're going to be placing their workers and their chieftain on the board. And you can see there's a lot of different spaces on the board. Now what's interesting about these spaces is they give you various resources, and the resources are double-sided. There's kind of like a unrefined resource and then a refined resource, and you'll be able to get these and collect the different resources depending on where you go. So you can see this gives you 1 unrefined stone and then 2 refined stones if I go to that spot. And so players can have to decide which spots to go to. There's also spots at the top of the board that are always available that players can go to, including one that lets you go first in the next round. And when players go first, they'll take this card, which will give bonuses to different players in different positions. So for example, whoever goes last the next round will go up 2 on the warfare track, and whoever's in third place will move 1 on the canoe, and whoever takes the first player card is going to move 1 on the road track. And so there's different symbols for that. But this is what makes the game fascinating, is that at the end of a round, you're going to get your workers back, but only if the tile is flipped over. And you're going to flip over the tiles at the end of whatever the current round is. So if you, for example, place a worker here in round 1, you're not going to get them back until the end of round 2. And if I place someone all the way down here at the bottom of the board, I'm never going to get them back. Now the spaces on the bottom of the board are fantastic and better spaces, but so you have to kind of weigh that. The exception is the chief. The chief can never go to the bottom of the board. They have to go to a spot where you're going to get them back. Now the military track at the top is going to be important. Whenever you send someone on the board, each spot can only hold 2 workers, with the exception of there's a few spots only 1 person can go to that spot. So if I place someone here, you could place your chieftain there, because a chieftain can go to a spot somebody else is. If a chieftain goes somewhere first, nobody else can go there. Or I can go to the same spot as you, but only if my military is equal to or greater than your spot. So if you have a low military, places where you're going to be able to put workers is going to be vastly limited. Not only that, but there's a spot here with a raid where you can raid and steal resources from people who have less military than you, and that all depends on what your strength is, where you are on this track compared to where the people you are raiding are. At the end of a turn, players can build artifacts here from the river, but they can only build where they have gone as far on their boat. There's going to be different cards available here, and these cards are going to get better and more powerful as the game goes by. These cards are going to be worth a certain amount of victory points. They have a certain cost on them when you pay for them, and they might give you an immediate benefit or a permanent benefit. So for example, this one here, every time I move this, I'm going to get a military point, but it will immediately let me move my guy 1 both on the road and on the river, and it's worth 1 point at the end of the game. While maybe later on This one here lets me move on the road too, gives me 3 military, but it's worth 7 victory points at the end of the game. And cards are also different types because that matters for different cards, and you can see some cards are worth a lot of points. You can also reserve a card. If you don't build that card by the end of the game, you will lose 5 points. And if you have a reserve card, you can build that card in the future. So the game is all really about getting the resources to build these cards, and you're going to be doing that by placing the workers on these spots. There's a ton of different spots out here, and I don't have time to go over all of them, but I want to point out there's a way over here to spend resources to get some neutral workers to put out the next turn, that you will have more spaces available to you as you move these boats down, these guys down. You'll get these special tiles, which will give you bonuses. You'll be able to go to different spots, which will score you bonus points at the end of the game. You'll put shields on these different areas to show that you've reached that spot on the road. If you get your person all the way down the road, you'll score bonus points down there. If you get your boat on the river down to a certain spot, you'll get an extra worker and bonus tiles here. If you go all the way down the river and need to keep going, you get bonus points. If you move all the way down the military track and need to keep going, you get bonus points. And so, here's people that you can use to change unrefined resources to refined resources. There's a lot of things going on, and you're going to be probably looking up a lot of symbology, but that's pretty much it. It's going to go for 5 rounds, and like I said, in each of the rounds you'll be flipping over the board at the end, which will reveal, first of all, a great action space that you can only go to if your caravan has gone that far down, and a new way to score victory points at the end of the game. And that's sort of kind of how it is. Like I said, there's a lot more other things going on over the course of the game, but that's how you play. The biggest problem the game is going to have is just there's so much to look at. You know, when you put these things out, they look beautiful, right? I love the background, but you're looking, okay, here's a space, I want to get this, and you're going to look around, and every game's going to be different. So while I don't think the symbology is that difficult, military track, river track, or move down the road, it's a little confusing. Then when you add the different people that you have over the course of the game, and you look up, I mean, these starting resources make sense, but what do these special people do? You have to explain that, but they are pretty simple. So for example, this kid here, he immediately moves 1 down the road, and then whenever he moves 1 down the road in the future, he gets to move an extra 1. When you upgrade him, he gets bonus points basically for moving these people as the game goes by. So you have to decide when's the best time to upgrade him, and there's different ways to do that. And there's a lot going on in the game. The resources themselves are fine. They have squares if they're refined resources, and you can see they kind of have a different color about them. I think there's enough of them. I haven't run out yet, but we've gotten close. All the pieces, again, the whole thing is a little bit more of a mishmash just looking at it, and there is a decent amount of setup. Just to set up this example game for a while takes a bit to get to. And then the cards themselves, while they have some neat artwork on them, again, you have to sit there and kind of think, what exactly does that card do? That would be my only complaint about components. The card quality itself is fine. The tiles and everything are fine. It just has the look of a more complex game. Do you like to do everything in a game? Then Terramara is not for you. Do you like a little bit of conflict in a game? Then you might enjoy this. If you hate conflict and you want a conflict-free game, this might drive you crazy. And in fact, when I first played Terramara, I was overwhelmed, not with the choices of the game, although there is a lot, and you need to realize that that's a factor here, but I was overwhelmed by the stress that came with this game. There's stress for a couple reasons. One, every worker placement game has this whole, I need to put someone in a spot before somebody else, right? But here, you have to kind of gauge a lot of things. Most spots can only have 1 person in them, maybe 2, but if someone puts a chieftain there, nobody else can go there. If someone puts a worker there, you can go there, but only if you have a higher military than they do. So if you have a low military, which is very possible, then you can feel like, oh, there's nowhere I can go, and not to mention people might raid me and steal my stuff. You can win with a low military, for sure, which is something I found out as time went by. Like, you can ignore the military and just put all your effort into maybe moving that boat really far down the river, maybe moving your caravans down. but you'll feel oppressed as the game goes by because other people are going after you. Not to mention, you'll see these really juicy action spaces. Like, I want to go here. It gives me 2 buffaloes and 1 hide. But I won't get the guy back for a few rounds. Oh, and that is really tough. That's what makes this game super fascinating. Not only to mention, if I go to a spot, I might never get that person back. But I also stop anyone else from going to that spot unless they have a higher military than me, because my person's going to sit there. And so this game has I was not bored for a second playing this. It has so many tough decisions. You sit there, when do I grow up? And you say, okay, that's in the game I'm talking about. Because that's a great special ability you have. But at the same time, I want to score victory points at the end of the game, so I got to figure out the best time to do that. The first player card is kind of weird in the sense that I'll take it and it gives a bonus to everyone except for the person who's second, which at first I thought, what is going on with that? And then I realized how brilliant that was. Because have you ever played a game where it seems like the second player is always kind of like, I don't have to worry about taking first player because this person always takes it, and I get to go second as a matter of course. Well, that still happens here. You just don't get the bonuses. So this is not a game. If you want to do everything, you will not be happy. You cannot. You can't move all the way down the military track, all the way down the boat track, and all the way down the caravans. Well, maybe you can. Maybe there's brilliant people out there, but it doesn't feel like you can. This game has different artifacts showing up, so you need to grab the right artifact. You don't want to grab artifacts so willy-nilly because then you'll lose points if you don't get them built by the end of the game. You want to pick artifacts that kind of build on each other. You can build like a small bit of an engine. But this game, which on the surface doesn't really look that much. When I first saw it, I said, meh, I've seen this sort of game before. But after playing it, I don't think I've played a game like this before. I play a game that, you put workers out, many games like that, where you take them out and take the actions of those spots, but where you can go all the way to the end and take this amazing stuff. It gives me a leg up in the game, but I've lost that person permanently. And that's good, tough decisions. So between decisions on what strategy to do overall, how much military you want to invest in, how far you want to move your boat down the river, what the caravans, you can shoot them straight down to the end to get points or better things, or you take more actions, or you can slowly meander them down, giving you access to more bonus points at the end of the game. When to grow up your person, what person to even draft at the beginning of the game, and starting resources. Choices. You cannot play this game with someone who is paralyzed by choices. It will be too long. You cannot play with this game by people who don't like conflict because it's just innately built into the game. But I still like it. It loses a point or so for me because it really does raise my stress levels when playing this game. I'm sitting there sweating the whole time. I don't even want to watch other people when they're taking their turns because I just know they're going to do what I want to do or stop me somehow or raid me before I'm able to use my resources to build that artifact I've been trying to build or take the artifact that I was going to build. Oh, there's so much of that going on. But it still is very entertaining, and it's a game that I like a lot. This is a game I think is going to fly under a lot of people's radars because, again, it just looks like generic Euro game number 1, but it's very well put together. It has a unique flavor to it, and I would recommend checking it out. That's Terramara. I'm Tom Vasel. We'll see you next time. Dice Tower Judgment approved.